Welcome back. Now we will discuss a little bit about what can cause a problem. You have an idea, you think you've said something very clearly, but the receiver has totally misinterpreted it. I heard last week about a man who said for electricians, since they might die if they make a mistake, the boss or the team leader needs to ask the worker to repeat the order to really make sure that there is no misinterpretation. And sometimes, if it's important, you need to do that. But if you have a speech, it's not possible to ask them to repeat. The problem is that our brain perceives about 400 words per minute. However, our speech speed is about 150 words per minute. So what does our brain do? It drifts away. It starts thinking about other things. And if a speaker uses prejudiced opinions due to gender, age, education, nationality, then it's very easy that it causes noise and you stop listening. And then you find the speaker unreliable. If there are factual errors, if you refer to facts from last year and you're not updated, then the one listening will know that this is not true, and all of again you've lost your ethos. Communication is like a dynamic circle, which means it can change. But first of all, the speaker must be well prepared. The idea must be firmly established. The message must follow a formal structure. You need to have thought about the choice of words. The language is important. You need to think about the entirety, the details. You start with the full idea, and then you come with the details, because then your audience can follow along. You need to think about where will you be, the medium, TV, lecture halls, or just in a boardroom, or in a conversation, drinking a cup of coffee. How will your audience the receiver, view you as a speaker? What's the attitude? How can you reach them in another way? And how do they react? That's how you will know if you have a good feedback or not. Do they smile? Do they look at you? Do they lean their head, or do they nod? Do they agree? That's how you can check that. And to be a good speaker, you must also be willing to listen critically. If you listen to somebody, does the speaker avoid sensitive arguments, present weak or defective conclusions, frights or threats? How does he try to convince me? And we have circle arguments, and then you lose credibility. For instance here, James was appointed the new head of the department, not due to his credentials, rather his charisma. Why does he have such a charisma? Because he's so well liked. Why is he so well liked? Because of his new job. His charisma is not interesting here. Because then you have a circle argument. The reason why he is appointed should be his credentials. And, of course, charisma. But when you use this as an argument, it doesn't function, and you lose interest. And that is something you will hear yourself, so avoid doing it yourself. What can cause noise then? Noise means that your audience does not listen. Their brain starts to wander. If you're not clear and direct regarding the goal and where you're headed, that's why it's good to start with an introduction and where you're headed, because then your listeners will, now he or she will speak about this, and this will follow, and they will wait for what will happen. If there is deficiencies in the formalities, in the introduction, so the audience will not have a clear idea of what will happen next, then they will be lost, because they will start thinking, what does he want with this? A person can have poor capacity of expressing oneself verbally, and that is something, if you come from another country, or if we speak another language, if we speak Chinese and we're not really good, we need to make sure that we have practiced enough to have a speech. If our body language is ambiguous, if we smile with our face but look hostile with our body language. In Sweden it's quite common, I've noticed, among men who relax, that they fold their arms like this, and it's just to relax. But it can also give the impression that you're sort of pushing people away, and then it looks strange when you smile. It could be language difficulties that cause noise, because you don't use the correct vocabulary. And then what is he meaning now? Why is he using that word? Sometimes the information can be insufficient. It's not enough information, or it's not updated. You also, the way you value facts and describe a situation or perceive a problem could be totally different from the ones listening to you, and that could cause noise. So you must make sure that you have made a target of your audience, that you really check who is your audience, what is their opinion here. How can you be accurate and clear then? Be specific. Simplify. Clarify. And it's like when you listen. Try to be specific. What exactly displeases you? What is it that you do not like? And think about that when you speak yourself. Ask somebody to listen to you. What sounds strange? And what are the consequences of what you're saying? So think about that before. It's also important to display empathy. As we spoke about the argumentative articles. Concession. Yes, I understand the way you look at things. And then you can present your argument, but you need to show empathy. I can understand that you're upset. I guess you're sad over the result if somebody has worked really hard with a project at a company. I can understand why you became angry, but then you can solve a conflict if there is one. How can we listen then? We can nod, yeah. Even if we are in an audience, we can nod and we can show interest and sympathy with our eyes and posture. And what can you do? We can also make brief pauses. Look around at your audience. Do they follow along? If they don't, you can actually ask questions if there is time, or change a little bit in what you're speaking about to lift or change your tone of voice or your pitch or something to catch their interest again. You can also suggest alternatives, not when you're convincing someone perhaps, but if you have a strong point, and then you could say, but would it be possible to solve this in another way? Do you think there are any other options? Would it be possible to tackle this situation from another point of view? If you've had a speech in a boarding room, a presentation, and you are open enough and humble enough to ask these questions, your credibility will really increase, because that shows that you're willing to listen to somebody else's thoughts. And if you've made a mistake, say you're sorry. Recently there was a researcher who had a different opinion from another researcher, and the former one is old, and he came to a lecture in Stockholm, and in front of all people he said, I'm sorry, my research was wrong, and this young researcher's view was right. The DNA proves it. And all of a sudden, the old researcher was really respected again. If he hadn't done that, he would have lost his ethos. But he showed that for him, the research was most important, not him as a human being. So these are a few ways that you can keep in touch with your audience. Be aware of the fact that the brain wanders, and it can cause problems, noise, so that what you're saying doesn't reach the audience. So if you're aware of this, you can become a really good speaker. But first of all, you need to be a good listener. So good luck.